I'm sure it comes as no surprise to anyone when I say that metal is a widely male-dominated music genre. The first metal bands were all men, the first fans of the genre were mostly men, and it's safe to say that some of its subgenres have a teensy little history of misogyny. With that being said, I think it's fair to say that female representation in metal has greatly improved, and women are widely regarded as valid members of heavy metal subculture. However, I think most of us would agree that there's lots of room for improvement, particularly when it comes to female metal musicians and their representation in festival lineups. So without further ado, hi, my name's Katie, welcome to Noise Arc, and let's talk about female representation at UK rock and metal festivals. There are loads of UK rock and metal festivals that I could have talked about in this video, but for the sake of my own sanity, and so that this video isn't 3 hours long, I've decided to focus on 3.5. I will also only be focusing on headliner slots, but that is headliner slots of any stage, any tent at these various festivals. The only reason I'm doing this is for the sake of time, my time and yours, but nonetheless, it does illustrate the point. So today I'll be looking at Download Festival, Bloodstock Open Air, Slam Dunk, and also 2000 Trees, but we will touch on that one later. Now, before you come after me in the comments, I chose Download and Bloodstock because I like them and I've been to them and it's my video, goddammit. And also you can't deny their popularity, which is the same reason that I went for Slam Dunk, even though it's not necessarily my thing. Plus, that does provide us with a variety of different subgenres. So, let's have a look at the statistics. Download Festival took the place of Monsters of Rock at Donington Park Circuit in 2003, and so this year it celebrated its 20-year anniversary. Did you go? I went! It was great, for the most part. It has since spread to France, Australia and Germany and has hosted some of the most legendary metal bands in existence. But how well do its headliner slots represent women? From when it began 20 years ago with just 2 stages to its 20-year anniversary with 4 stages, Download has had a whopping 247 available headline spots. Now, before I tell you how many of those headliner slots went to bands with either female musicians or were fronted by women, I want you to let that sink in. 20 years and 247 available spots. Are you ready? Just 13 of those spots went to bands that had at least one female musician. That is 5.2%. And only 6 of those bands were female fronted. That is 2.4%. 13 and 6 out of 247. Isn't it fun when your camera stops filming and you didn't know? Anyway, let's talk about Bloodstock. Now, Bloodstock did officially start in 2001 and was named Bloodstock UK Metal Fest. It was initially an indoor festival that ran from 2001 to 2006. Once again, just for the sake of time, I'm going to be talking about Bloodstock Open Air that's been running in Catton Park since 2005. When this video comes out, it'll actually be either the day of or the day before. Some of you guys will be lugging your camping gear into Catton Park for Bloodstock this year, and I'm so jealous. Over the years, Bloodstock Open Air has provided us with 213 available headline spots. That doesn't include the VIP bar stage. So it's actually not that far off of Download, but how well does it compare? Well, it's not great, but it sure is better. Out of the 213 available headline spots, 33 of them went to bands that had at least one female member, which is 15.5%. Let me remind you, Download had 5.2%. Also, 25 of those slots went to female-fronted bands, which is 11.7%, compared to Download's measly 2.4%. Like I said, it's not great, but it sure is better. And I'm gonna go change my shirt real quickly. Now moving on to Slam Dunk. Slam Dunk Festival is associated with UK indie record label Slam Dunk Records and has been running since 2006. It's a day-long festival that was initially just held in Leeds, but now the festival runs twice back-to-back, once in Hatfield, called Slam Dunk South, and once in Leeds, which is Slam Dunk North. Now, Slam Dunk isn't a metal festival, but it has hosted a lot of acts that have also played both Download and Bloodstock. It's primarily a rock or pop-punk kind of festival, which would lead you to believe that it would probably have more female musicians, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? A total of 109 headline spots have been available at Slam Dunk since it began, and only 6 of those have gone to bands with at least one female member. That is 5.5%. And out of those 6, 5 of them were female fronted, which is 4.5%. Here is a graphic for you to just recap everything that I've just said. But I also said I'd look into 2000 Trees, didn't I? 2000 Trees is an independent festival in Gloucestershire that's been running since 2007. It hosts a pretty wide variety of acts and has a capacity of only around 15,000, making it the smallest festival on this list. Once again, it's not really a rock festival and actually has quite a few similarities with Reading and Leeds Festival. Don't ask me why I'm not talking about Reading and Leeds, we've all seen this image. The reason I'm talking about 2000 Trees is because I can. It's my video. No, it's really because I heard quite a lot of buzz about it this year, and like Slam Dunk, there are a lot of bands that play 2000 Trees that have also played Download and Bloodstock. And then once I actually started researching it, I found that some of the statistics were actually quite interesting. Also, even though the festival started in 2007, my data starts in 2012 because I could not for the life of me find the stage splits from 2011 and backwards. I could only find like a list of all the artists that played and didn't know who was headlining, so my research starts from 2012. I'm sorry. So, from 2012, there have been a total of 141 total headline slots at 2000 Trees, which is quite a lot considering the scale of the festival, but you do have to remember that this does span over 5 stages. Out of the 141 headline spots, 25 of them, which is 17.7%, went to bands with at least one female band member. And 18 of them, which is 12.7%, were taken by female-fronted bands. Now, if you remember the previous numbers, that puts 2000 Trees in first place on our list when it comes to female representation. Also, out of the 12 years that I looked into, there was only 1 year that had no female representation in the headline slots at all. This is my spreadsheet with my data. The red boxes are where there were no women in the headline spots, so you can see how 2000 Trees compares to the other 3. At first glance, you'd think that this data would show that the problem is that there's not a lot of female musicians in rock and metal, seeing as a lot of the female musicians that played at 2000 Trees were in like indie and pop bands. Obviously this is true to an extent, but it doesn't explain why Bloodstock, one of the festivals that typically host bands that are heavier than bands that might play at Download, and certainly bands that play in Slam Dunk, was in second place. So then you might ask yourself if it's more to do with the size of the festival, and I think this is where we begin to get into part of the problem. So let's have a look at Download Festival. It is the biggest rock and metal festival in the UK, and it also performed the worst on our list. Iron Maiden and Slipknot have headlined Download's main stage 5 times. Metallica and Linkin Park have done it 4 times. You probably already know this, but none of these bands have any women in them. I know I am setting myself up to be abused in the comments, but I think that part of the problem is that the same bands keep being offered the headline slots, which means that bands that are slightly smaller than them are offered headline spots on smaller stages, and those bands are often all men as well, and it keeps going down like that and so on. My point is that female-fronted bands or bands with female musicians are rising up the ranks, but they can't possibly reach the top because those positions are already being held by the same bands that have been holding them for years. Bring Me the Horizon headline Download this year, and a lot of people kicked off when this was announced. A lot of people complained that they weren't big enough to take the main stage spot, and I will admit that at the time I doubted the decision as well. But I went to go see them anyway, and oh my god, they proved that they had every right to be there. Also, they brought out Amy Lee and Nova Twins, which was really cool. Now, obviously, Bring Me the Horizon don't have any female members, that's not my point. My point is that Download Festival took a little bit of a risk with having them in a headline spot, and it worked out. So let's use the most popular streaming platform, Spotify, as a way to gauge popularity and therefore headliner success. Bring Me the Horizon have 13.5 million monthly listeners on Spotify. Evanescence have 12 million. And Evanescence did headline Download's second stage this year, and it was carnage. There were what looked and felt like tens of thousands of people cramming to desperately try and watch their set. Me and my friends didn't even bother. We desperately tried to go and see Evanescence, but we literally could not get even close enough to hear them properly. It was widely agreed that they were far too popular to be on the second stage. Surely they could headline the main stage. And what about one of the most successful female-fronted bands at the moment? Paramore have 21.5 million monthly listeners on Spotify. They could absolutely 100% headline Download's main stage. And before you complain that they're not heavy enough, I'm going to remind you that Biffy Clyro have headlined Download twice. It is estimated that 1/3 of metal fans are women, so naturally an even smaller percentage of those will be metal musicians. The 2014 article Grunting Alone, Online Gender Inequality in Extreme Metal Music by Jay Schaap and P. Burkers states that there are 2 primary causes for the lack of female musicians in metal. The first is that people form bands with individuals that they have social bonds with. Generally speaking, social bonds are formed between 2 members of the same sex. Therefore, if most metal musicians are men who form social bonds with other men, it's not surprising that the vast majority of metal bands are going to be made up of just men. The likelihood that women who are metal musicians will form social bonds with other women who are metal musicians is slim. If right now you go and look up the members of your favourite band and how they met, there's a strong chance that they will have met in school. This doesn't really tend to happen for women. From my personal experience, I was one of maybe 2 or 3 female metalheads in my entire school of like hundreds of pupils. And as far as I know, I'm the only one that went on to study metal and to make metal herself. I met almost all of the musicians I have ever worked with through both universities that I went to, which were both music schools. To summarise this point, here's a quote from the article. Playing in a band is a largely male homosocial activity shaped by sex-segregated friendship networks. The second cause for the lack of female metal musicians, according to Shap and Burkers, is due to hegemonic understandings of masculinity and femininity. Rock and metal music are often associated with being masculine. It's described in this article as being a form of male rebellion. These associations with music and gender do start at a very young age. Lucy Green's 2002 article on gendered discourse in music education found a gendered choice of instrument amongst school children in music classes. Boys gravitated towards drums and electric guitars, whereas girls tend to play the more orchestral instruments associated with classical music. However, these choices were further encouraged by their school environment, that is, their peers and their teachers. Girls conformed to the standards of behaviour expected of them, that is, being delicate and quiet. However, the badly behaved girls in these classes were far less likely to be interested in the orchestral and classical instruments. Boys are generally perceived as more boisterous and loud, and they will get laughed at by their peers if they want to join the primary school choir. So naturally, they were drawn to the more boyish instruments. In the cases of both the boys and the girls, this is an affirmation of gender. I'm going to end this section with a quote from Green. The school's reproduction of enduring historical patterns in gendered music practices does not arise only through the raw offering of opportunity. Rather, the school perpetuates subtle definition of femininity and masculinity as connotations of different musical practices and musical styles, in which pupils invest their desires to conform, not necessarily to the school, but to the wider social construction of gender. I could have talked about the lack of female representation in metal and festivals for a lot longer, but I was running really late on this video and it's probably definitely gonna go out slightly late. Maybe I'll come back to this topic in the future and make something more in depth on it. You'll have to stick around and find out to see if I do that. Although researching this topic made me sad and angry, the one thing it did give me was a long list of bands that are either female fronted or have female musicians that I need to check out. I will find a way to link them all or list them all in the description so that you yourselves can go and check out these bands. Also, if you are a woman in a metal band or you know someone who is, let me know in the comments. And now is actually a really good time to say that I am a woman in a metal band. We've literally only just started out. We don't have anything original out yet, but we are in the process of making it. But I will link our socials in the description anyway. Thank you so much for the love on the last video too. This one was a little bit different and took me longer to write, but I'm really proud of it, so I'd really appreciate your feedback. Like last time, all of my sources will be at the end of this video, and I will be back in 2 weeks with a different topic, so make sure that you are subscribed and you've clicked the notification bell. Thanks so much for being here, and I will see you soon. Bye.